When our interests and values are at stake, we have a responsibility to act.
That's President Obama making a strong case for American humanitarian intervention.
And a case that didn't exactly convince his critics. Top Line begins right now.
Welcome to ABC News Top Line. I'm Karen Travers.
And I'm Jonathan Karl.
And every day at noon Eastern, we're right here bringing you the latest in politics. You can follow us on Twitter at Karen Travers and at John Karl. And John, up there on Capitol Hill, kick us off. What's your first top line?
Start with Obama doctrine. Some people thought they heard it in the speech last night when the president said what you heard in the open of the show, that we will intervene on occasion when our values and interests are at stake. But I'll tell you, Karen, there were so many caveats in there and such a description of why the Libya situation was truly unique in terms of justifying American military involvement that I'm not so sure you could really call this an Obama doctrine. One a writer at National Journal has suggested that maybe the Obama doctrine is that there is no Obama doctrine.
And it was a very careful speech to not paint himself into a corner. And I think that standard perhaps will be when a massacre is imminent. That seemed to be what he made this decision on and what finally pushed him over the edge to make this military intervention in Libya. Next up, switching gears a bit, Trump the birther. Potential 2012 Republican candidate Donald Trump continues to beat the drum about President Obama's birth certificate, questioning in an interview with Fox News why the president can't produce a document. He's been talking about this, John, for a week. He even volunteered to give his own birth certificate, and he said he had it handy. It was right there on his desk. Who is he trying to reach out to with these comments? What is he trying to get from this?
Well, look, here is the important thing, and as you know, we take the Donald Trump for president candidacy very seriously here on Top Line. You know, Donald Trump, it seems so far he has not really produced his birth certificate, Karen. He's produced some kind of a hospital record or something. And my sources here at ABC News say that you don't have a birth certificate, but we can get to that on another time. Is that true?
I will never be president. I do not have a birth certificate. We'll blame my mother for that one.
Fine. Next up, we'll get that story another time. Rubio 2016. I had a chance to interview Marco Rubio. You will see the interview. It's his first interview since winning the race down in Florida for U.S. Senate, and it will be on Nightline tonight. But here's the thing, Karen. I had to press him repeatedly before I could get him to rule out running for president in 2012, but he did seem to leave some wiggle room for beyond that. Listen to the exchange.
I'm not running for president in 2012.
No way.
No, because I want to be a United States Senator. I want to be the best United States Senator that Florida's ever had.
Not running in 2012. He was very clear to say that. And by the way, on Nightline, you will also hear him answer the question about being the vice presidential nominee. And let me tell you, Karen, a little sneak preview, he is not quite as definitive in ruling that out.
I love the idea that we don't have any Republicans who have firmly declared themselves candidates for 2012. So let's just jump ahead. We'll just start talking about the 2016 candidates. We want something to get going here. Speaking of 2012 potential contenders, the next top line is dodgy and dubious. No surprise here, John Karl. Sarah Palin did not like President Obama's speech last night. Here's what she said on Fox News.
I think that was a profoundly disappointing speech because it proved that the Obama doctrine is still full of chaos and questions. It's dodgy, it's dubious.
This seems to be one of those occasions where if she said something completely opposite, then that would have been news. Really no shock there.
No, but I liked the dodgy and dubious alliteration. It almost sounds like she was channeling Jesse Jackson a little bit. I think this is a new trend for Sarah Palin. We'll be watching it, of course, carefully on here on Top Line. Now, just a short while ago, I caught up with Congressman Joe Heck. He is from Las Vegas, Nevada, a freshman Republican, and talked to him about the president's speech, among other things. Here's the interview. Congressman Heck, thank you for joining us on Top Line.
My pleasure, thanks.
So you've been critical of the president on Libya, but now he's come out and he's made his case to the nation. Did he convince you?
Well, not really. I don't think he really made the case. I still did not hear a clearly articulated national security interest in going into Libya. I haven't heard what is our endpoint, what's our exit strategy, what are we hoping to accomplish. So I still have as many questions after last night as I did going in.
But one of the points he made last night was that if they had waited even another day, you would have seen a massacre in the city of Benghazi. I mean, you really think that it was okay for the U.S. to stand by while that happened?
Well, you know,
it's been prevented.
Well, there's this moral imperative of trying to protect those that are being oppressed by a ruling dictator. But the issue again is, what is the national security interest of the United States of going in there and expending our resources, both in dollars and in troops, to escalate a situation that should really be taken care of the folks that are in the area.
So, given that the folks that were in the area were not taken care of, you would have been comfortable seeing a situation where Gaddafi basically has free reign to kill his own people?
Well, you know, these are all thoughts of what might have happened. Okay?
Right.
But the fact is,
they were 80 miles outside of Benghazi.
But there was still no clear-cut national security interest other than the humanitarian effort. But you know, when we look at what is the national security interest, when you look at Secretary of Defense Gates or Admiral Mullen, Chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, saying that there's no greater threat to the United States than our debt, how are we going into another country expending $600 million by some estimates in the first week with not addressing what is our true national security interest in that area?
What's your sense, if I can ask you just briefly to look back, I mean, given the experience in Iraq, in hindsight, was that a mistake?
Well, I think when
because that was far more costly, right?
It certainly was, but there was also a bipartisan resolution that was passed authorizing the use of force in Iraq, which was not done here, perhaps some saying violating the War Powers Act. You know, the president went into Libya without congressional approval, without talking to Congress beforehand. And those are some of the issues that, had we had the opportunity to weigh in, we say, well, what is the national security interest? What are we hoping to accomplish? The president used the analogy to Bosnia last night in a speech, but we're still in Bosnia some 15 years after we first went in the same type of a situation by trying to enforce a no-fly zone to alleviate the humanitarian crisis. So what is it that we're hoping to accomplish? Why are we there? And what are we hoping to gain? And when are we going to get out? Okay,
you mentioned the budget implications, so let's get to that. All signs now are that these negotiations are not going well. I mean, your funding for the government's going to expire now in 2 weeks. Is a government shutdown something that we should be afraid of, or is it something worth facing if it means getting the kind of cuts you really want to see?
Well, I'm hoping that the next continuing resolution will be the last one. We need to put fiscal year 11 behind us and turn our attention to the fiscal year 12 budget process. Certainly, these continuing resolutions have put the Department of Defense, of all agencies, in kind of a rough spot in trying to continue their operations. It's very hard for them to operate under a continuing resolution. So it's hopeful that this one will be the last one. We'll get to the cuts that we need to be at for fiscal year 11, and then let's turn our attention to fiscal year 12.
But what I'm asking, though, if to really push for the kind of cuts that your leadership wants, that certainly many of your colleagues, and I assume you want, is it worth pushing this to the point of even a government shutdown?
Well, nobody wants to hold Social Security checks hostage, but we do need to rein in spending. Again, when the Department of Defense is telling you that the greatest threat the United States faces is our debt, you've got to stand up and take notice. And we need to get our wasteful spending under control.
You know, some of the cuts that are in this, the resolution that you voted for, include cuts to nuclear energy safety programs at the Department of Energy. In light of what we've seen in Japan, should we reconsider those? Some have suggested maybe we should reconsider those cuts.
Well, when you look at
talking tens of millions of dollars.
When you look at the cuts that were enacted through House Resolution 1, the first continuing resolution that we proffered, there is a shared pain across every agency within the United States government of trying to rein in spending. And so we needed to look at what can we safely take away to rein in the Washington spending.
But would you reconsider the nuclear cuts, though?
Well, I would not reconsider the nuclear cuts. I think you've got the Appropriations Committee did due process and looking at where there was the ability to cut some spending, and that's what we did. And now it's time to look forward to fiscal year 12.
Okay, I got to get you on some politics things quickly before we head out. First of all, Sharon Angle talking about running for Congress. You going to support her?
I have no idea. I don't see who's in the race yet. There's a lot of people talking about getting in the congressional district too.
Right, you supported her pretty full blown when she was running for Senate. I mean, what do you make? You think she'd be a strong candidate for
Well, I think there are several candidates that would be very strong in that race. So some of which are from Carson City and from the rural areas. Some that are statewide office holders. So we'll see what the field plays out to be.
Let me ask it differently then. Would it be a disaster for you if Sharon Angle got the nomination? Would it be bad? I mean, given that some people say that Senate race was absolutely winnable, and say that it was because of the candidate that Republicans nominated.
Well, I think it's up to the voters of CD2 to decide who their nominee is going to be for the Republican Party.
Okay, all right. And then presidential politics. You were a big Romney supporter early on.
I was.
You've already stepped out to support him again.
I have.
No concern about the fact that he's the guy that brought, you know, as the president says, the model for national health care reform
Well, you know,
in Massachusetts?
that's not a concern for me, because the fact is what the governor did was do what all governors should do and look at what's going to work best for their state, not take some one-size-fits-all government mandate and run it through the entire country. You know, he looked at what he thought would work for his state.
Was it the right thing for Massachusetts?
Well, you know, there's a lot more insured people in the state of Massachusetts, but the important thing was it was a program designed by the state for the state, not a federal program that's being rammed down the states.
All right, we have a defender here that is not the President of the United States and not the current governor of Massachusetts for Romney's health care performance in Massachusetts. Thank you very much. Congressman Heck, appreciate you appearing on Top Line with us.
Thank you.
Hey, Karen, do you get the sense that Congressman Heck would not be too excited about a Sharon Angle for Congress candidacy?
I think that's exactly right. I don't think we're going to see him out in the trail, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see him out in the trail for Mitt Romney. That was a pretty good defense of Romney's health care plan. They might want to sign him up as a surrogate and get him out on the road.
It may be the first Republican I have seen actually make that defense.
Pithy, short, concise, he did it.